So we will call to order the meeting and we will do a roll call, and we do have a quorum of 3 physically present. So to my left, we'll start.
Jerry Burmeister.
Jenny Sisson,
James King.
and then online,
Jamila Zafar.
Kyle Icorn.
okay, so we do have a quorum. Oh, we have election of officers on here. So I would like to make a motion to elect Kyle as our president again.
I second that.
Any other votes on that or people?
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We will have to do a roll call since we have some online. So to my left,
Jerry Burmeister.
Jenny Sisson,
James King.
online,
Jamila Zafar.
Kyle
Kyle.
Icorn, aye.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So Kyle Icorn as president, and then I will put out for the vice president. It is. I'm not gonna vote for myself, but
I'll nominate Jenny as vice president.
okay. So I think I heard some online as well. So we have a nomination for Jenny Sisson. So we will do a roll call.
Jerry Burmeister.
Jenny Sisson,
James King.
online,
Jamila.
Kyle Icorn, I vote yes.
so we have all in favor for Jenny Sisson as vice president.
Aye. Yes.
Is it our secretary?
Yes. You have a second.
Secretary, because it's Jamil currently, correct? So do we have a nomination for secretary?
I would like to nominate Jerry Burmeister.
You're shaking your head.
These are current. Is it?
She's current, yes.
Did you hear it?
Yeah.
I second that.
My nomination.
There's thinking going on. Yeah, there is some thinking.
I would like to nominate her again to serve.
So we have a
I would
nomination.
just note that on the position of secretary, it need not be a member of the BZA.
Oh.
It could be Stephanie or a member of the planning staff.
Okay.
Thank
Does
you.
anyone need any clarification on what the role does?
Yes. Why don't you tell us?
So the secretary of the plan commission, if there is certain documentation that requires the secretary to sign along with the president, we have those at times that come into play. But for the most part, our Board of Zoning Appeals or the findings of fact is signed by the entire body. But as far as secretary, we do have a staff on hand with the planning department as far as taking the meeting minutes. So that role and responsibility is absorbed by staff. That is pretty much the gist of the secretary. It's just a legality, it's a purpose, but it's not a very involved role.
That's exactly right. It's mainly for attestation for documents that need recorded or may be recorded. And that literally can be anybody. The person should be at the meeting so they can come up and sign it next to the
Gotcha.
chairman.
I'm okay
And
with it.
So you are,
I'm okay
okay.
with it.
So we have a nomination for Jerry, and he is okay with it. We did originally have a nomination for Jamila, but I know that you nominated someone else. So will we keep the nomination at Jerry at first? So we'll go through, and if we need to do the next, we will. So do we have a second for Jerry Burmeister?
I'll second.
So we have a second. So we'll do a roll call for Jerry for secretary. So to my left,
Jerry Burmeister.
Jenny Sisson,
James King votes yes.
and then online,
Jamila Zafar.
Kyle Icorn, yes.
okay, so we have all votes for Jerry then, unanimous.
Thank you.
And I think that's all the officers for this one, correct?
Yes, that's
Okay, thank you. I wasn't prepared for that part. Okay, so we will move on to number 4, the approval of minutes from our previous meeting, and it was one of the special meetings that we had. It is long, so I don't know if people had a chance to review beforehand.
We also have the November review minutes as well.
Oh,
So there's-
yes.
Do we approve both minutes and can we approve all of it in one motion?
Yes, sir.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve the December and the special meeting minutes.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Do we have a second
I second November, yeah.
for November and,
Sorry,
The special
November and
meeting.
the special meeting.
yes.
Correct. Yep.
Do we have a second for the November and the special meeting?
I will second.
We have a second. So we will do a roll call to my left.
Jerry Burmeister,
Jenny Sisson
James King.
online.
Jamila Zafar,
Kyle Icon, yes.
So we have a unanimous for approval of minutes. And now we will go on to number 5, our old business. So on part A, the condemnation hearing for 116 through 118 West State Street.
Yes, that's correct. We have the continuing matter with the Busey building, the condemnation hearing. Since our last hearing, which was a special hearing that was on the 3rd of January, the very next day, Mr. Mabry, he issued the COO, the certificate of occupancy for the 120 West Sixth Street. So that has been removed from the condemnation order. Going forward, we are just addressing the 116 and the 118 building. It is the most far east building. So he, since then, has been working hard on structural remediation. He has continued to communicate with staff, even as late as I think was last Friday. So he's continuing to work on those repairs to improve the structural issues that we've had. As far as next step and what our understanding, he does need some more time to address those. And in the meantime, when he is ready for that inspection, the next inspection to take place, Brett Mabry, our building inspector, will go in and he will first assess those works and those improvements to the building. Mr. Nodine, Chief Nodine, he can go in at that time, or if he would opt to, he can also wait until after the final inspection of the building, but prior to any relief of that condemnation order. But as far as next steps, Brett Mabry would go in, Chief Nodine. Chief Nodine has continued to express that we do need to make sure that we have a commercially graded fire extinguisher. We need to have one per each building. Per the capacity, it's less than 50. So we only need one per building, but we need to have one per building. Just kind of remind you, as last month, Mr. Busey the town did loan him a fire extinguisher, the fire department did. So we will need to have that returned and replaced with his own. But then also we need to have an exit sign for the 116, 118 building, as well as make sure that there's a safe ingress and egress to that front entrance to the building. So once those have been reviewed and Mr. Mabry determines that we are ready for the RC engineer to come back and take a look to see if the remedies have been met, then we will hire RC engineer to come back. The town will pay for that, for him to come back at an hourly rate to assess, to make sure that everything on the list is checked off. And if there are any punch list items that need to be addressed, we'll handle it the same way that we did last month. At that time, Mr. Busey was great in communicating. He sent pictures as follow-up to Fritz, and he was able to confirm that they were done. And we also can have some eyes on the site as well. Brett Mabry can come in and take a look at that as well for us. So once we get that letter of release confirming that those items have been resolved and taken care of, we will come back to the board and we will ask your consideration to then remove then that last part of that condemnation order. So it's kind of where we're at. We've also let Mr. Bucher know that he does not have to wait until the February BZA meeting, that he does have the option to request a special meeting if he feels that we can get back in there and do those inspections and we can get Fritz back in there and get his team in there. We'd be more than happy to schedule a special meeting in between now and the February meeting. So that's all I have as far as the staff recommendation. We would just like for him to continue those steps. And I know that he was here earlier and expressed that he needs maybe 3-4 days to complete it. So that I would like to turn it over to Mr. Busey if he has anything to add, or if you have any questions for us as staff. For Mr. Busey.
I do have a question,
Sure.
and it's not specific to Mr. Busey, but it does deal with how we handle all the buildings. Do we know that all of our downtown buildings have commercial grade fire extinguishers that meet? And how does that
Yeah.
work? Is that from the town
Mhm.
I,
doing the inspections, or are we doing some?
I might be able to answer some of that question. I know tomorrow night we're having a special meeting at the fire department, the 6 o'clock. Of course, you're welcome to come, Steve, but the fire chief's going to address that. From now on, there's going to be building inspections for everybody. Everybody's going to have a fire extinguisher, or so that's being addressed right now.
Okay,
Yeah, the Pendleton Business Association, they are holding that meeting.
Right.
They're at the fire station tomorrow night at 6. So.
and for some of the other things that we're holding Mr. Busey to, beyond the fire extinguishers, is there going to be some language that's given to property owners of commercial buildings as far as these are things that are looked at?
I think the
Yeah.
exit sign is one, for example. I had to have one in my business and
Mhm.
so forth.
I just
Other
want to make
people should
sure, I
too.
mean, we're holding Mr. Busey to high standards, rightfully so. So we need to hold everyone else, and I want to
Everyone should have.
make sure that those things are addressed.
That we treat everyone equal.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, and I do think that, as staff too, that we do need to communicate that to all and follow up with all of those standards, just to make sure that each of them are met for Mr. Busey as well as any of our property owners. We've got a lot of buildings that are currently under renovation. And
Mhm.
so we're really going to be tightening down and making sure that those building standards and those codes are met.
and documentation.
Yes, yes. And we do have a new iWork system. We've had it for about a year. And with that system, we've learned that there's a lot more features available to that, to where the history and any activity, whether it's permits or renderings, inspections, any type of special letters, any notations, there's a lot of different features that are going to help us as staff to be able to keep track. And it'll just be an ongoing trace that we can then look at per contractor, per property address. So and then also any type of letters. We've talked about that actually this morning, our staff meeting, to have some unified letter communication that will go out to different businesses that will be consistent. And yes, so
And
there's
if
a lot.
there's email communication, does it track that or have an ability to save those?
We could either put it in a PDF form and upload it as a document. I know we would have that capability.
Okay,
But we also have a notation area as well. A lot of times that when things come in, if a petition comes in for our planning and it's not quite complete, I'll make note of that what we're waiting for, so then that way it'll alert to when that is being reviewed. It's clear of kind of the status of that too.
Right.
So it is a great program. We have, kind of tried to broaden, get more flexible and comfortable with that program. So I think in this next year, this will be our second year full into that program. I think we'll find that we'll be relying on it a lot more and more. So
What's it
Mr.
called?
it's iWorks.
iWorks.
It's like a small WORQS. And they had got with Scott Needham, our IT rep, and Brett Mabry about a year and a half ago, and they just started building that program for our town, and it's been wonderful for our building. It houses our building permit applications, as well as all of our plan commission, our HPC, COAs, all of our BZA petitions. So everything is all in one place.
right.
It has reporting that we can generate from it. So yes, so we're learning a lot more and more on that.
Keeps things seamless.
Mhm.
I think we're very fortunate. January 1st, the fire department went partial paid department, and they have staff 24/7 now. And I think you're gonna see a lot more enforcement, in a lot more inspections. I think you're gonna see a lot more of that in the future.
Again, I didn't have any specific toward Mr. Busey. I don't know if anyone else does or online, if there's any questions.
I actually walked by your business today, Steve, and I could hear them in there hammering and nailing and going to it. And
Every day since the special meeting.
I applaud you for the work that you've done and hope you keep it up.
Yeah, it's gonna be done in just a few more days. I've had some employees with health problems. Yesterday, we all three almost died when some stuff fell. But we didn't. We're all good. I want to thank you, Jenny, for bringing up that I'm being brought up to some very high standards. And that you want to make sure that the other businesses are brought to those same standards. Appreciate that very much.
You're welcome.
But I also want to point out, as far as I know, I'm the only one that got condemned and everyone else gets to do their repairs without getting condemned and losing their income. And obviously the building wasn't about to fall down because it's still standing and it's been a year.
And I appreciate those comments. What I do have to say, and I don't want to rehash what our findings were, evidence was presented to us to make that decision. Evidence have not been presented about some other structures, which is why I ask more from like the safety features as far as the exit signs, the fire extinguishers. As far as structurally, staff has not brought that to us. And so I have to rely on what is brought to us here regarding those things. That's again why I asked, do we have systems in place? What are we checking on?
Why is
But-
any of the other buildings condemned while they're doing the repairs?
I can't speak to that because I don't know if there's been an issue or a complaint, whether they're structurally sound or not.
Yeah, you didn't call engineers on nobody else, just me. You let them do the repairs without condemning them. And I'll go back to being nice again.
They have permits, right?
Pardon?
All people doing work have permits.
They wouldn't even
Issued
give
by
me
the
a
city.
permit. I asked this board over a year ago to give me a permit. and I still don't have it.
You know, Steve, I think you have to understand what Jenny said, that it was brought to our attention as a board.
I
and we
understand
had to
that.
Act on it. No one else has been brought to our attention yet. That you were brought to our attention as a board, we had to act on it. And if it's
Yeah.
another building is brought to our attention, we'll act on that.
But you didn't bring in an engineer to look at any of the others. It was apparently just
Nothing else
Brett's
has been brought to our
decision.
attention yet.
Apparently the others was all Brett's decision. This is the only one that you brought in an engineer that disagrees with me. But
Do you understand what I'm saying, though? Your building was brought to the board's attention. and we
By
had to
who?
Act on that.
by who? Was
As
your
a board,
wife, in
when it
case
was
you
brought to
don't
my
know,
attention.
was Dixie that came down here and complained?
I have no idea about that.
Well,
No.
it was.
I don't talk to her.
But we do intend on being consistent as far as this board asking of our town, our staff to get things in place to be consistent.
Well,
So can't
I
answer
totally
the
understand why you all voted
Mechanics
the way
of
you
what
did.
was presented, we have
We
to
all
act
know
on
why.
what was presented. I don't know. I don't get into those conversations. I look at the record on hand to make my decisions, which is why
I totally
consistently
understand why y'all
reinforce
voted the way you did, but
consistency.
we all know that's because the town manager got pissed off at me and came down here and told you it needed, that it was about to fall down. Which it's not.
I do appreciate all your work and I think you will see the downtown shaping up. And
And I
Definitely.
unlucky first one.
I want to see, as well as our board, consistency because that's the right thing.
Absolutely. That's why I complimented you on what you said there. Because that's, you know, you're having me all at these higher standards, but no one else. No one else. They get to do all their repairs without getting condemned and losing $2,000 a month. For a year.
And-
Sorry.
No, I was gonna say, as staff, could I?
Yes,
maybe
go ahead. Thank
comment
you.
or Comment. So I do agree with Jenny and the board and that standards need to be, all property owners need to be upheld to the same standard.
Absolutely.
As staff, I would like to clarify that we are in the process, I think, of growing pains and our town is growing. We're realizing we need to be proactive, more proactive now than ever. I mean, we always should have been proactive. We have been more, reacting and being responsive to something that had been brought to our attention. So I wouldn't want anyone to think that we were not responding to anything or not bringing anything to the board's attention. We've always done that. Anything that had been brought to and that had been realized that maybe needed to be addressed, we do bring that up to our board members. It's just that we are at the point that we are realizing we need to be proactive to then find and identify those needs that also need to be addressed throughout the town. So that's, we definitely would always be mindful of bringing that responsible to our board in doing that. It's just that there happened to been a report that happened before we were on staff here. Many of the board members were active board members on the board. But it was a report that then got brought to our attention that we needed to make sure that we responded to. And, but again, we can't commend you enough for being, very pleasant to work with and very responsive, So we are very excited about your project. So, thank
Okay, well,
you.
I
But
need a
just
few
wanted to
more
clarify.
days.
Yes. So do we just need to vote on just a
continue,
continuation and he
I
is
think I'm
able to
already
come
on the
back?
6-month deal for November.
Yes, that doesn't come up until April. No penalty or anything is assessed until then. And he's got plenty of time. It's just that we also are mindful of the fact that he would like to be able to get his businesses back up and running
Absolutely.
and get profitable. So we would like to see that for him as well. So as staff, we would be very willing, and I know you all would
Yes.
agree that we could come back and make some date available as soon as we can get you on the calendar to come back. Once everything's-
And I think we can, out of all of us, find enough for a quorum for a special meeting. So we will just vote on a continuation. Do I have a nomination or not nomination, sorry.
I make a motion.
Do we need,
We
Second.
have a motion and we have a second, so we will do roll call to my left.
Jerry Burmeister.
Jenny Sisson
James King, yes.
and online.
Kyle Icorn, yes.
Jamila Zafar.
Okay, so we have all yeses for continuation. Thank you, Mr. Busey. So we will go on to other old business. The VLU 1115-2022-01 findings of fact for 201 East Water Street. And that's the Pendleton lockup storage business.
So for the past couple months since our November BZA meeting, just a reminder, we had the two petitions. We had the storage unit there off of Water Street, and then we also had the Upton property there off of State Road 67. Since then, been working with Jeff. He's been a wonderful help to us in working on our findings of fact. With our new UDO, we had criteria that we need to make sure that our findings of facts complemented our UDO. So we updated our findings of facts verbiage, as well as land use. A variance in land use is very uncommon. So we wanted to make sure that we had it right for you before we presented it to you. So we appreciate your patience. Thank you very much. We had thought we'd try to get it in by the special meeting, but we need a little bit more time on that. And I think what we have, the documents are in your Google Drive. There are some copies up front there as well. But since it's been a little bit of time and since they're very rare and they don't come very often, and then also there's recent case law that highly suggests, motivates us to make sure that each of our criteria, our 5 criteria, we support that with some backing, that we don't just throw it out there just that the criteria was met. We need to address specifically each of those petitions and how those criteria have been met. As far as the finding the facts itself, we have those criteria outlined, how they've been, or how we as you as a board had felt that those findings had been, criteria had been met, as well as some additional items that were presented at the BZA meeting when we were here in November. We put those in there in your presentation, as well as outline the conditions. So those conditions are in sync with the meeting minutes, with recordings. We've listened back, as well as the notes that were taken there as well. But the first one, the variance in land use with the storage unit, it was approved by your board on November the 15th. It approved the expansion of a legal non-conforming use. So at the time of when it was developed under a planned business, it was allowed use to have storage units. When we got the new zoning map change in 2021, it changed to general business, which did not permit storage units within that zoning district. However, if it had not been changed, it would have been, that expansion would have been permitted. So as far as the criteria, the board, you had found that it was not injurious to public health and safety. We'll just kind of hit the main points here, because it did not change existing business or traffic pattern. The use and value of the adjacent properties, you did not feel that it was adversely affected, being more so the fact that the business and the expansion did not disrupt their surrounding areas, residential and commercial properties. The need for the variance arose from a condition that was peculiar to that property, and that was because that burden of that zoning map was not anticipated by the property owner. They had intended on expanding, and you saw fit that expansion under the new zoning district of the, actually, I said that wrong. It's not general business. It is the
Planned business, right?
the prior one was planned business,
Yeah.
but now it is the, and I'm just drawing a blank here, apologize. It is the neighborhood business. So that is what that property, that parcel is zoned. So apologize for that. The strict application would be a hardship to that property owner if we did not allow them to expand that use. And that was what was found, and that the record did not show that it had a substantial interference with our comprehensive plan. That current use would just be expanded, and it would be expanded in an orderly fashion. There's a couple other comments that we wanted to provide out there that was pointed out in the meeting minutes and the discussions that you had at the November BZA. There was also a nearby resident that did attend that meeting, and he's expressed support based on the fact that there was an agreement with the fencing arrangement. So he was good with that. And then the conditions, there was 3 that was outlined by your board. The petitioner shall fence in that site as presented at that meeting, and it had to be in accordance. Once it comes time to constructing that fence, we need to make sure that it adheres to the UDO standards. Also, the petitioner shall pave the inside of the fenced area as presented, and they need to do so within 2 years of the building construction, once it is complete. And also, they are to, as a property owner, to enforce the restrictive use of that north gate at the rear end of the property, want to restrict that to the fire service, police, and then also just the property owner, that there's not going to be tenants or leases of that property to go in and out there. So we just kind of wanted to make sure that we kind of rehash that a little bit before you signed and approved tonight those findings of facts on that.
So I'm just gonna ask of our board and online if there's anything that wasn't captured here from our last meeting and any discussion that we had on it.
No, I think it sounded very complete. If I need to sign, I can stop by in the morning and do that.
And I as well, I think everyone that's physically present has nodded their head as well, that this captures everything. And I like that we laid it out very concretely for future records. Um, and so would you like me to ask
Is
for
there
a
a
motion if there's
motion
no
or-
other discussion?
I don't know, is that? a
Do we
motion
have
is
to? We
necessary?
already
Does it-
approved last week.
We've already approved them unless someone sees
Okay,
a problem, we could just ask our chair to come in and sign it.
okay. Well, it sounds like everyone is good with this document. So Kyle, we will have you come in when you can to sign this.
Yep. I'll stop by in the morning.
And then if we can get signatures from the three of you as well. So we've
Yes.
got, okay. Yep. tonight.
Okay, so we can move on then to the next findings of fact for BLU 1115-2022-02 for 6929 South State Road 67.
This one was presented at the November meeting as well as it was approved as well with that change in land use. This was just specific to that south building though on that property line, that property parcel. As far as approval, what they had asked and what they were given approval was to take it from a commercial contractor facility to a commercial contractor facility / single family dwelling as well, to include that single family usage on the second story only. So that's kind of, what they would requested and what had been approved. It was deemed by your board to not be injurious to the public health and safety because there was not going to be any significant physical changes to that property. And any improvements that are going to be made, it's going to reinforce the functionality of that property and also public safety. With that landscape, that closure of that entrance there on that southwest end that butts up there at the corner of Water Street and State Road 67. there.
Citing too. I think.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, that is in the conditions, yes, that they are going to improve this, the siding there to be similar to the north building, yeah. As far as the value and use of adjacent properties, it wasn't deemed to be adversely affected. Those improvements was felt as across the board that it would result in a positive enhancement to the site. So they felt you felt that that criteria was met. As far as the need of the variance arising from a condition peculiar to the property, this is a multi-structure and a multi-use facility already as is. And a lot of the surrounding properties are also multi-use in nature. And this seemed to fit very well within the area and seemed fitting for the area, as well as several properties close and nearby and adjacent have single family dwelling. There to the east, as well as to the north, across the street, then also with the plaza there for the Falls Plaza, there's residential uses as well, and then also to the south. So it's highly surrounded by residential use and commercial mix. And as far as strict application would be a hardship, your board felt that it would be a hardship if we would not allow an expansion of that land use as it was in harmony with those surrounding areas. And it was in harmony with legal non-conforming uses already in place. And as far as the record showing that there was any substantial interference with the comprehensive plan, your board did not feel that there was an interference. And again, because it really was fitting for that area and it was in harmony with the space. There was additional facts. One, we did have Becky Perry wanted to point out that she attended the meeting and was well in support of the petition as presented. And those conditions are outlined also in the findings of facts. The first one being petitioner shall make improvements to the exterior facade to the south building, similar to the architecture to the north building. Also, petitioner agreed to remove the southwest access point and replace it with landscaping. Which would improve safety as well as functionality. And also they agreed to remove the asphalt on the west side of that north building, which would be a great improvement to that site. And then they also, you had asked him to maintain that lower ground level of that south building, at least to the south end, keep that as commercial use along that Water Street area for safety. And they agreed to it, and those are the conditions that were set forth in the findings of facts.
Any discussion on this? Online?
It sounds good, very complete.
So you will be signing this one, Kyle, tomorrow or?
Correct,
whenever you
yep.
Come in with the
I'll come
other,
in. Yep, I'll do it. Sign them both tomorrow.
Thank you, Kyle.
and we'll sign tonight.
Yep.
It's present. And there is, so we'll move on. There's no new business to report. The next meeting is February 21st. However, be watching emails as we might have a special meeting and we will need at least 3 of us here when that happens. I have a feeling it probably will. So just be watching emails so we can move that situation along and wrap that up if possible. Aside from that, the meeting's adjourned.